Okay, so let's jump right in. For like thousands of years, there's been one undisputed king of assets: gold, right? It's the ultimate store of value, the safe haven you run to in any storm. But now, a young digital pretender has shown up, and it's making a really serious claim to the throne. Today, we're going to unpack a fascinating analysis from Deutsche Bank Research that puts the ancient king right up against the new kid on the block, Bitcoin.
And yeah, that's the big question, isn't it? As the US dollar's role in the world is kind of shifting, everybody's looking for what's next. So can this new digital thing really challenge millennia of financial history? Let's take a look at the numbers.
All right, first up, the reigning champ, gold. In a world that's full of uncertainty, it just recently smashed its all-time high, hitting over $3,700 an ounce. Now that is the power of the incumbent. But hold that thought. Because just a month earlier, the pretender hit its own staggering high, over $123,000. You see, this isn't some niche curiosity anymore. This is a major financial force. But to really understand where it's going, we have to look at its chaotic past. And this is where the story gets, well, a little messy. It's exactly why so many people are still so deeply skeptical. Bitcoin wasn't born in a quiet boardroom. It was born in the wild west of the internet. And its early history, wow, it was a total roller coaster. In 2013, one of its biggest uses was on the dark web market Silk Road, which the FBI promptly shut down. A year after that, the world's first big crypto exchange, MTGOX, collapsed in the most spectacular way possible. Then came the price insanity. In 2017, it skyrockets to almost 20 grand, only to crash 45% in just 5 days. And even that was nothing compared to the 2018 crypto winter, an 80% collapse that was even worse than the dot-com bust. I mean, with a history like that, you can see why the establishment called it a pretender. All that chaos left a lasting impression. Even today, as this Deutsche Bank analysis points out, the single biggest thing holding it back is risk. It's just seen as too wild, too untrustworthy for the mainstream. But what if the story we all tell ourselves about the stable, reliable king isn't the whole story? Now, this is where it gets really interesting. Let's turn the spotlight back on gold for a second. We think of it as the bedrock of finance, right? But its path to the throne was anything but smooth. In fact, it starts to look surprisingly familiar. Get this. Back in 1933, the US government literally forced its own citizens to surrender their gold. A year later, President Roosevelt just made private ownership illegal. Then, in 1971, President Nixon completely severed the dollar's link to gold, effectively kicking it out of the global money system. And for the next 30 years, central banks all over the world treated gold like some ancient relic, just selling it off in huge amounts. The king was, for a pretty long time, a total outcast. And this right here is the core argument of the report. Just think about all the criticisms we throw at Bitcoin today. Gold has faced every single one of them. It's too volatile. Gold's price surged almost 1,400% in the late 70s. Lacks institutional trust. It was officially dropped from the international monetary system. Suffers from massive crashes. Its price fell over 60% between 1980 and 2001. Suddenly, the pretender's story is starting to sound a whole lot like the king's. So if gold could come back from being an outcast to reclaim its throne, you have to wonder, could Bitcoin be on a similar path? Let's look at the evidence that this young pretender is actually starting to grow up. And the signs of it maturing are pretty undeniable. In January 2024, the SEC finally greenlit spot Bitcoin ETFs, giving mainstream investors an easy regulated way to buy in. We're seeing huge corporations add it to their balance sheets, and those new ETFs are seeing record billions of dollars in inflows. And crucially, its famous volatility hit historic lows in 2025, even as its price was soaring. We're even seeing entire nations like El Salvador and Ukraine adding Bitcoin to their national reserves. This is a massive shift from those early Wild West years. But this could be the single biggest step toward legitimacy yet. The US government itself is exploring the idea of creating a national strategic reserve of Bitcoin. I mean, if the world's largest economy starts treating it like digital gold, what's to stop every other country from following right behind? And the way they're proposing to pay for it is actually pretty clever. Instead of new taxes, the Bitcoin Act of 2025 suggests using revenue from tariffs to buy Bitcoin. Another idea involves the Treasury revaluing its old gold certificates to their modern market price and then using the difference to fund the program. They're trying to build this whole reserve without touching taxpayer money directly. Of course, something this huge is gonna be controversial, and it absolutely is. Supporters, like Senator Loomis, argue it could help reduce the massive $36 trillion national debt. But critics, like Representative Connolly, have called it unsound fiscal policy and a potential get-rich-quick scheme for the administration. The battle for Bitcoin's legitimacy is now being fought at the very highest levels of government. So, after all this, where do we land? Is it a fight to the death where one has to win and the other has to lose? Well, according to the analysis, the future might look a bit more collaborative. I mean, when you just put their performances side by side since 2012, the difference is staggering. Gold's rise is impressive, sure, but Bitcoin's is on another planet entirely. This sheer power is exactly why it just can't be ignored anymore. So what's the final verdict? Well, it's not a knockout. The report concludes that the most likely outcome is actually coexistence. By 2030, we could be looking at a world where central banks hold both the ancient king and the digital pretender, side by side, in their official reserves. And this quote just brings our whole journey full circle. Skepticism, suspicion, wild speculation, massive volatility. This isn't some news story. It's the story of pretty much any asset on its path to becoming a trusted store of value. Gold walked this path, and now it looks like Bitcoin is following right in its footsteps. Which leaves us with a final thought. If every king was once a pretender, fighting for legitimacy against the old guard, it forces us to ask a much bigger question. This isn't just about gold versus Bitcoin. It's about what comes next. What will money and value even look like in the century to come?